Hello team, welcome back. And let's start with the deployments in Kubernetes. We will see what is the deployment and what is the application of deployment in Kubernetes. So till date, we have discussed that to execute your application, you need the container. And that container is executed within a single unit called pod in Kubernetes. We also learned that within a single pod, you can execute the multiple container. But pod is a basic minimum fundamental unit in a Kubernetes. Either that is executing a single container or multiple container, that is the basic unit in Kubernetes. Today we are going to learn that pod is a sublayer of a different thing which is called deployment. Or you can say that deployment is a wrapper of the pod. So we are executing the container is executing within the pod, and pod is executing within the deployment. Although the pod can execute in the other sets as well, like the replica set, replication controller, but these are the old things. Kubernetes latest version is supporting the deployment extensively, and deployment have the multiple features above the replica set. So we are not going to discuss about the replica set, we are going to discuss about the deployment. And deployment is a superset of the pod. So within a deployment, you can either run a single pod or multiple pod. We will see how we can do that. So now question is why we are doing this. Although we can execute the application within a container, but in earlier section we discussed that why you need pod, why you cannot use the containers directly to support the multi-container model and easy networking and the volumes. But now why we need deployment? Why can't we directly execute the pod which is executing my application? And the answer is deployment is providing more feature and more flexibility which is not supported with the pod. Using the deployment, you are getting few more features. What are those features? So one of them is a scaling. Suppose you want to scale your application on the basis of the load. So let's understand this with a simple example. Suppose you are working for some kind of e-commerce platform, right? That e-commerce platform is expected to get more loads on the sale seasons, right? And when the sale is going to end, you are expecting the lower load. So whenever your e-commerce platform is going to start the sale, you need more number of server, you need more number of resources to take care the traffic, whatever the traffic you are getting in that particular sale season. So in that case, it may also possible that in the very few hours, you are getting a lot of load on your system, right? You are getting a lot of request on your system. Deployment provide you a feature of called scaling. In that case, if you are getting this kind of traffic on your platform, then in that case your platform will automatically scale your application, right? Using the deployment you can provide that particular feature, right? So whenever the load is increasing on your software, as per the defined configuration, the deployment can scale the number of pods. And whenever the load is decreasing on your software, as per the configuration, deployment may reduce the number of pod. So using the deployment, you can scale and descale your application. You can scale and descale the number of pods. Another feature is the upgrade. So using the deployment, you will get the different kind of upgrade strategy. And using these strategies, you can upgrade your application from version 1 to another version. With the help of a pod, that thing is not possible. Similarly, you have the rollback. So whenever there is a path of the upgrade, there may be the path of the rollback. If there is any kind of issue in your upgraded version, you can simply roll back to the previous version. So using the deployment, although you are putting one more layer on the pod, but that layer is have some own unique features, and that is providing the more flexibility as compared to the pod object in Kubernetes. So whenever you are using the deployment and suppose you want to deploy your application, so you can create the YAML file for your deployment, and like the pod, you can execute that YAML file to roll out your deployment. In case you want to pause your deployment, you can pause your deployment in between. And in case you want to resume that deployment after the pause, you can resume that deployment. So using the deployment, we have the feature that we can directly apply the deployment like the pod. We can pause that deployment and we can resume that deployment. In case you want to roll back your features, then you can simply roll back your deployment as well. The another feature which you are getting apart from the upgrade, that is the application scaling. So using the replicas is a specific term in the deployment. You can define the number of replicas in your deployment. Replicas means that whenever you are defining a specific number in front of the replica, that is going to, your deployment will contain that much number of copies of the pods. So suppose within your deployment configuration you are defining replica 2. So your deployment is going to execute 2 copy of that particular pod. So with the help of replicas, you can scale up and scale down your application. Whatever the number of replicas you will mention in your deployment, your application will scale up and scale down as per the number of replicas. You can define the upper limit and the lower limit as well. And whenever you have the upper limit and lower limit in number of replicas, in that case, scaling and descaling work on the load balancing, right? Whatever the load you are getting from the load balancer, the number of replicas will scale and scale down as per that load. We'll learn about that particular thing in the services section. From this particular section point of view, you need to know that what are the deployment strategy you can use in Kubernetes. So although there are multiple deployment strategy and you are also getting some customized Kubernetes flavor, and these custom flavors are providing more number of deployment strategy. But there are four main strategy in the deployment. First is the recreate. So suppose you have some deployment which is running and you want to upgrade your application. What you can do, you can altogether create a new deployment. Another one is the rolling upgrade or rolling update. In the rolling upgrade or rolling update feature, what you will do, suppose there are 10 number of pod running in your deployment and you want to upgrade your application to the different version, then in that particular deployment upgrade or in that particular deployment strategy, the pods will upgrade in the rolling update manner or rolling upgrade manner. So they will upgrade one by one. Another deployment strategy is the canary deployment strategy. In the canary deployment strategy, what you will do, you will split your traffic, right? You will split your traffic between the newer version and the older version. So once you will start roll out the new version, you will start splitting your traffic, like 15% traffic on the newer version, rest traffic on the previous version. Once you will add more number of pod of the newer version, the more traffic will be redirected to the newer version, and the less traffic will be redirected to the older version. Similarly, the fourth one is the blue green. Over here, what you will do, you will create the two deployments and you will switch over the service in the Kubernetes so that your customer will start pointing to the new version. So these are the four main deployment strategy which we are going to learn in this section. But before learning about the deployment in deep, we need to learn about the labels and selectors. So in the coming lectures, we'll learn about the labels and selectors, because to understand the deployment, the understanding of the labels and selectors is necessary. So thank you team. That's all for the day.